They say the first financial bubble in history was about flowers. That's right, a bunch of grown adults once lost fortunes trading tulips. Except, they kinda didn't. Because the real story of Tulip Mania isn't about crazy Dutch people buying plants. It's about how we keep misunderstanding money, hype, and ourselves. So today, we're digging up the real dirt beneath the tulips. Spoiler, it smells a lot like clickbait from the 1600s. If you've ever heard someone say, crypto is just the new Tulip Mania, you probably nodded like, yeah, that sounds smart. But the truth is, almost everything we think we know about the tulip bubble is wrong. No, regular people didn't sell their houses for bulbs. No, the entire Dutch economy didn't collapse. And yes, tulips were expensive, but for reasons that actually made sense. So how did a centuries-old flower become the poster child for economic stupidity? Let's go back to 17th century Holland, the land of canals, wooden shoes, and apparently, the dumbest investors ever. Or maybe not. Every time a new financial craze hits Bitcoin, NFTs, meme stocks, someone dusts off the tulip story and says, see? People never learn. The problem is, Tulip Mania became this lazy metaphor like the boy who cried bubble. But the actual event? It's more like a game of telephone that got completely out of control. Historiens, journalistes, and armchair economists all added their own little spice until the story went from a niche market fluctuation to the biggest financial disaster in history. And because humans love drama, that exaggerated version stuck. The question is, who started it and why? Let's start in the early 1600s. The Netherlands was basically the Silicon Valley of the world. They just invented the stock market. International trade was booming, and people were making serious money like, I own a ship and it sails to India kind of money. Enter the tulip. Tulips weren't native to Europe. They came from the Ottoman Empire, what's now Turkey, and they looked exotic as hell. Back then, flowers weren't just plants. They were status symbols. Having rare tulips in your garden was like parking a Lamborghini on your front lawn, except it didn't need gas and didn't scare the neighbor's cat. And some tulips weren't just rare, they were freakishly beautiful. Stripes, flames, weird patterns that looked painted. What nobody knew was that these patterns were caused by a virus that made the colors unpredictable, which, in turn, made them priceless because humans love anything we can't control. So yeah, tulips became a luxury item for the elite. Think of it like NFT art, but your JPEG could rot if you watered it wrong. By the 1,630 seconds, tulip trading was a whole thing. But here's the twist. People weren't buying and selling the actual flowers. They were trading contracts for bulbs that hadn't even grown yet. It was like futures trading, except for plants. Picture this. You agree to buy a tulip bulb 6 months from now, hoping its value will rise. Someone else agrees to sell it, hoping it'll drop. Neither of you actually touch a flower. It's just paper promises flying around coffee houses and taverns like today's crypto discords, but with worse hygiene. Now, prices did go up, especially for rare varieties with cool names like Semper Augustus and Viceroy. A single bulb could be worth as much as a skilled craftsman's yearly salary, which sounds insane, but so is paying $200K for a cartoon ape, and people did that too. So let's not judge too quickly. Here's where the story gets messy. The whole people sold their homes for tulips thing? That comes from a book written years after the mania by a guy named Charles Mackay. In 1841, he wrote, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it's full of juicy tales about collective stupidity. But there's a problem. He wasn't there. He relied on rumors, pamphlets, and satire pieces from the 1600s, basically the 17th century version of Twitter threads. One of those pamphlets was literally a joke, a parody making fun of rich people and their obsessions. But future historians didn't get the joke. They took it literally. Imagine if 400 years from now, someone used The Onion to write history textbooks. That's what happened with Tulip Mania. Real data from the time shows that, yes, tulip prices did spike, but only for a few months. And even then, it mostly affected a small group of merchants and traders, not the entire economy. There was no mass bankruptcy, no national collapse. It was more like a market hiccup that turned into a meme. So did prices crash? Yes. Around February 1637, buyers suddenly stopped showing up to auctions. Maybe they realized tulips don't pay rent. Maybe they just got bored. Or maybe the plague, yes, the actual bubonic plague made people rethink their priorities. Whatever the reason, prices dropped fast. Contracts got canceled, And a lot of people were like, wait, do I really have to pay for this flower that hasn't even bloomed yet? The Dutch government stepped in and said, no one's going to jail for this. They basically downgraded tulip contracts to optional bets. So most traders walked away slightly embarrassed but not ruined. That's not exactly the economic apocalypse version we were sold, is it? So if Tulip Mania wasn't a massive crash, why does everyone still talk about it? Because the myth was just too good. It's a perfect morality tale. A story about human greed, stupidity, and how people always chase easy money. It's tidy. It's dramatic. It makes us feel smarter than the people in the story. Except, that's the illusion. The truth is, the Dutch were actually early financial innovators. They built one of the first complex markets in history, including derivatives, options, and trading infrastructure at a time when most countries were still figuring out how to print newspapers. Tulip Mania wasn't a failure of reason. It was one of the first experiments in financial risk and how humans react when you mix money with emotion. The real story isn't, people were dumb. It's, people were people. They got excited, they speculated, they made mistakes, then they moved on. And honestly, that's every market ever. Let's be real. We haven't changed much since the 1600s. We still chase hype. We still think this time is different. But now, instead of tulips, we've got Dogecoin, NFTs, and AI tokens that sound like they were named by a 1-2-year-old gamer. In 2021, a digital rock NFT sold for over $1 million. A JPEG of a rock. And people said, well, it's just like Tulip Mania. But here's the irony. That comparison came from a story that wasn't even true in the first place. We keep recycling the same myth, a myth about a myth, to describe modern finance. It's like financial inception. The real danger isn't bubbles. It's thinking we're too smart to fall for them. Because that's exactly what everyone in every bubble has ever thought. The 1929 crash, the dot-com boom, the housing market, crypto winter, they all start the same way. Sure, prices are high, but this one's different. And every time, we end up with people holding metaphorical tulip bulbs, wondering where their yacht went. So why do we fall for it, again and again? Because humans don't trade on logic, we trade on feelings. We crave belonging, we chase stories, and we hate missing out. If your friends are making money from tulips, apes, or whatever's trending, your brain says, you're missing something. FOMO isn't new. It's just rebranded greed with anxiety issues. And here's the kicker. Bubbles feel amazing when you're inside them. Prices go up, everyone's rich, reality bends. It's like a collective hallucination, and nobody wants to wake up first. In the tulip craze, people believed rare bulbs had eternal value. In the dot-com era, we thought every website would change the world. In the crypto boom, people believed pictures of monkeys would fund retirement. Different century, same psychology. So why hasn't the real story replaced the fake one? Because truth doesn't go viral, drama does. The image of a poor Dutch guy trading his house for a flower is just too good to fact-check. It's simple, funny, tragic, the holy trinity of internet content. Even economists use it as shorthand. You can say, Tulip Mania, and instantly everyone knows what you mean. Hype, stupidity, crash. It's lazy but convenient. The irony? By repeating the myth, we keep proving its core message true that people believe what they want to believe when it comes to money. So, was Tulip Mania real? Yes, but not in the way you've been told. It wasn't a mass delusion. It was a speculative blip in a booming economy. No one burned their fortune for a flower. No peasants starved because of tulips. And the Dutch economy? It kept growing. They literally went on to dominate world trade for another century. The real lesson isn't, don't buy tulips. It's, be careful with stories that make you feel too smart. Because those are the ones that usually fool us the most. Every time we say, it's just like Tulip Mania, what we really mean is, I don't understand what's going on, but I want to sound like I do. And that might be the most expensive illusion of all. If you like this story, keep the illusion going, hit subscribe, and watch the next episode.